It's podcast day. It's podcast day. Welcome in. Always good to have you back here with me. Welcome to my little corner of YouTube. I am Mars, otherwise known as heyBrownBerry, and you are welcome here. In this episode, I'm actually processing something and doing it by way of this camera. This is something that I've been thinking about and thought it was worth chronicling. It's on the subject of finishing. As a maker, I have over time accumulated unfinished projects for different reasons, and I have abandoned projects for different reasons. I feel that this is something that's very easy to do, and it's caused by just the habit I have of starting new things, just getting interested in something, picking it up and starting it. When it comes to my knitting in particular, I will admit I have several active projects on the go. I've probably got 5, maybe 6 right now, if I count the ones that I've touched in the last 2 weeks. And I'm usually okay with that, but I've been reflecting on finishing. What's a good motivator for finishing? What prevents me from finishing? These are topics that I've been ruminating on in the brain. And I just wanted to share some of those thoughts with you. Today's target for finishing that I've picked up is this sweater. This is the One Sweater DK. It's a pattern by the Fiber Company, and it's a great pattern. I highly recommend it, and because of that, I will put the details for it below this video. And it was knit in the Fiber Company Luma, which is a gorgeous yarn to work with, very drapey. It's very soft. In fact, it's so soft that it actually has quite a bit of pilling on it. And I show you that pilling willingly because it's just proof that I wear it a lot. That's how much I like it. It's a top-down raglan sweater, and I enjoyed making it, and I love wearing it. And it is the focus of today's discussion. I've had this sweater for quite some time, maybe a year or more. Not quite sure. The information will be in my project page. And it needs to be fixed and finished properly. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. Hey friends, I'm in the midst of taking out many stitches on a sweater sleeve, and this is all part of something I'm hoping to share with you. So by this point I might have introduced this topic already, on the subject of finishing. And in this case, I'm actually undoing a project in order to feel like it has been properly finished. So here I am picking away at the bind off. This was a tubular bind off on this sleeve. And as you saw in the video, I need to make these sleeves much shorter. It turns out I need to make them, well, I need to go back about 73 rounds, 73, and reknit the cuff. I'm even considering either going down a needle size or knitting the cuff on less stitches to bring it in a bit. The whole sleeve is pretty wide on my arm. You may have seen in my Word of the Year podcast that I chose the word reflect and the concept of reflection for 2021. I've been reflecting on unfinished projects, and especially things that are not yet done, but really close to the finish line, and thinking about why one project or another was abandoned. Of course, like many of you, I succumbed to startitis and I cast on projects impulsively sometimes. And I don't mean to use impulsive as a negative word. More like I'm inspired in a moment by something to start a new project. The yarn, a pattern I've seen, an idea I want to try. And I cast on because I can. And in general, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. In fact, I've accepted for a long time that I'm a person who is okay having multiple projects on the needles. But I've been reflecting for a while about the things that get left behind unfinished. I just Kitchener stitch closed the toe on a pair of socks today. And this particular sweater that I'm working on right now, I had actually worn it a couple days ago because I knit it quite some time ago. I wore it outside to sit by the fire. I like to sit by our fire pit and enjoy some quiet time under the trees in the backyard. And anything that I wear when I am sitting by the fire is bound to get a smoky smell. The smell of burning wood permeates the fabric. And because I was wearing this sweater by the fire and it was getting full of smoke smell, and typically if I do that with non-knitwear, I have to wash it afterwards. Or I choose to wash it afterwards to get some of that smoky smell out. In my hand knits, I definitely don't wash as much as my ready-to-wear store-bought clothing, but they do get cleaned every now and then. And with the amount of times that I've worn this sweater this season, it was about time that it get a bath, get a wash. In thinking about that process, which is going to essentially mean soaking it's going to mean soaking this sweater and laying it out flat to dry. And I realized that for a long time, these sleeves have been too long. They've been too long since I finished the project. They didn't become too long. I knit them in a construction that I actually like. This is a raglan construction sweater, and I knit the upper body part of the sweater and left the stitches for sleeves on some waste yarn. And then I knit the sleeve separately, and at the end I Kitchener stitched the separate sleeve that I knit. I Kitchener stitched it to the body. Interrupting myself quickly here to explain a bit about the sweater construction I mentioned. The reason that I tend to knit the sleeve separately and then Kitchener it to the body is because I do not enjoy working on the small circumference of a sleeve in a sweater while picking up the rest of the body of the sweater and turning it each time in order to work that smaller sleeve round. So knitting the sleeve as a separate tube and then grafting it to the rest of the body is something I find much easier to do. I don't have a hard time with Kitchener stitch, and it's really not that many stitches in the end, so it makes it easier than having to heft the whole sweater around while I work on a sleeve. Hope that makes sense. Well, I knit that separate sleeve way too long. I Kitchener stitched it to the body. I put it on when all was said and done, saw that it was way too long, and just decided in that moment that I was not going to fix it. In fact, even in the modeled shots of this finished project, you can see that I have the sleeves rolled up. I have them cuffed. I rolled them about 3 times to make a cuff at the wrist. That's definitely not how I prefer to wear my sweaters. In fact, I judge sweater sleeve length by how easy it is for me to push the sleeves out of the way when I want to wash dishes or I'm tucking into some kind of work. I don't like to have a lot of sleeve length to push out of the way. I don't mind the fact that I had to cuff them, but to cuff them 3 times was excessive. And the fact of the matter is, I felt that way every single time I put the sweater on. It didn't change. So now that it smells like firewood, and it's been worn enough times that it should have a bath, I thought, I'm going to fix those sleeves. It's a finished project, but not really. Because what I'm doing now in order to get rid of all this excess is slow and tedious, I'm purposely unpicking this bind off instead of just snipping off a piece of the sweater. I've chosen to do it this way so that I can spend some time with this yarn, think a little bit about how I want to redo this sleeve, and embrace this tedious task. I really have been reflecting on why I don't finish things, and what I've come up with so far is that some part of me knows that the finishing steps for those projects that have been abandoned are going to take time. It's going to be slow. Some of it's going to be tedious. And I won't have the same excited feeling that I had when I cast on the project. And so I'm not as inclined to do it. So I'm flexing a bit of a muscle right now. A patience muscle? I don't know. I'm spending the time that it takes to unpick this sweater sleeve, rescue this yarn. And because I'm going to block the rest of the sweater anyway, I can wash this yarn and re-knit the sleeve. And then block the whole thing. And that should smooth out any crinkles and wrinkles from the used yarn. What are some of the reasons that you typically don't finish a project? Do you find that you abandon projects for the same reason each time? Is it something about assembly or fit that puts you off? Is it a technique or a skill that you maybe aren't as comfortable with that prevents you from going all the way to the end? Or is it just wanting to cast on something else for a new experience? I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on this, as usual. In the comments, you can share with me and with the rest of us here in our little corner. What typically keeps you from finishing a project, or what happens when you put it away? And what might help you to pick it up again? For me, the finishing of this project was somewhat roundabout. I need to wash and block that sweater anyway. I haven't liked the sleeves forever. If I undo the sleeves and reuse that yarn and make the sleeves the way they need to be, I'm going to want to block the sweater again. So combining those two things has motivated me. I have some other projects that I have not finished. One in particular is my Citrine sweater, which I've talked about here on the podcast in previous episodes. It needs the sleeves to be finished, and I ran out of yarn. I did a little bit of searching to see if I could source more of the dye lot that I would need to finish the sleeves according to the pattern. And so far I wasn't able to find that specific dye lot for that yarn. And so I put it away, knowing that the next thing I'll need to do is manipulate what I have into a short sleeve pullover, and then also assemble the front and back pieces and set in the sleeves. All of that assembly work stands between me and a finished sweater. I loved knitting it. The yarn was amazing. I believe that it will look really nice on me. And the only thing keeping me from that stage are some finishing steps. I have a goal that I'm setting for myself in response to this reflection. I would like to see if I could maintain a smaller active project list for a period of time. Are there any monogamous makers out there? Who are the one-at-a-time project folks? I haven't been a one-at-a-time project person in years. But I'd like to see if it would be enjoyable to have one, maybe two active projects going. And in order to do that, I need to put other things away. Finish them, frog them, put the yarn away and acknowledge that I'm just not going to start. And when I get to one or two projects, see if having just those to focus on allows me to get all the way from start to finish with more ease. It's worth a try, right? Maybe I will get down to a couple of projects and find that the temptation to have more things on the go is just too strong. And maybe I'll unlock some new level of focus and find that I can go all the way from the beginning of a project to the end and feel content and feel satisfaction in that. We are our own best experiment. I fully believe that. I embrace trying things, new things, different things. But more than anything, I embrace just questioning how I currently do something. Why is it that I'm so willing to have multiple projects on the go, but I have a difficult time taking some of them to completion? Why is that? I'm grateful for a space to share this reflection with you, and I can't wait for our conversation about finishing by way of the comment thread. I've got quite a long ways to go, but I feel good about the decision to start on this process of fixing this one thing and finishing it. Thanks for being with me, friends. I love having you here, and I invite you back next time. Bye for now.